So let me give a quick introduction, everybody that's watching. This is just the most ridiculously outrageous procedure we've had to go through to make this work. We did do an excellent interview just before I got beat to a pulp the other day. That should have been great. Worked out great, but I guess I forgot to press a button or something. I did something wrong and we lost it. And apparently now we may have lost the person who did it. And it was a very, very important interview. So in the case that person does back out ultimately, and it does have resounding repercussions that are negative for everybody involved, I will give you that person's name, I promise. But in any case, I, as you know, I'm the host of Soul Mechanics, and which is likely what you might see this on first. But we're going to be adding this to our own channel, which is going to be the ongoing podcast. This is going to be the first of two introductory videos for your two hosts. I'm the co-host of this new channel. Ironically, I'm in quite possibly the worst shape I could be in for an introduction. This is my first impression. I look like shit. I'm still a little beaten up. I've managed to heal pretty well, very quickly actually, and I've been through some crazy stuff since then. But my name is Donovan Neal. You know me as various other aliases that I don't need to count off here, but one of which is extremely important in all of this. And like I said, I'm the host of Soul Mechanics and the current acting director of the Status Initiative. That may change very soon. I'd like to introduce you to our actual host of this podcast channel. Her name is Amanda Leigh, or Amanda Leigh as I know her. And she is a magnificently wonderful person who will go ahead and give her own introductions as she pleases now.
Thank you, Donovan. I appreciate it. And yes, everyone, he is absolutely right. We have been through hell in a literal sense, trying to get this going. But we are not giving up, and this is try number 2. So yeah, my name is Amanda, as he stated, and we're gonna get a little bit more into what our projects are and things like that later on. Every question is going to be answered, but I am from Tennessee, and I am a witch as well, and I will get into abilities and things like that again later on in the interview, but I am a witch, and I have lived in multiple places, but right now Tennessee is my home, and yeah, so Donovan, if you would like to get started, or would you like me to get started?
Well, this is me. This is my intro video, so this is going to be you asking me questions for this one.
All right. So, okay. Okay.
I'm the co-host again, by the way. She's the head deal. She's the headmistress. She's the big shot. Damn it.
Are you okay?
Come on, Liara. You're drunk. Stand up straight. Alright.
Okay. Alright. So, the first question that I have for you is for you, Donovan, is this. Please tell the viewers and the audience about...
Yeah. You know what the funniest part is? It says that we're in another call with me right now. Well, we're in a call with Dallas Tucker. That's going to be the most common alias you'll see me use.
Okay, so let's try this again. Tell me about your childhood and growing up. And what, if anything, during that developmental period in your life is responsible for your views now?
That's a good one. Tough question to answer. Um, Especially tough for me, but would be tough for anyone. Uh, I didn't really have a childhood at all. I remember a few things here and there growing up. I remember I got into a lot of fights. The kids in the neighborhood tended to fight with sticks, like rods and metal rods and such, and that's how I picked up a knack for that, I suppose. Although I was kind of born just gifted with a general capacity for sword play in general. Like I've always been really good with the sword, but unrefined until later on in life. But I do remember getting in some serious fights and getting hurt pretty bad, and finding out that I did have I was born with a knack for weapon practice and for jumping off of things and for being acrobatic and that sort of thing. I guess perhaps I intended to be an athlete, but I forgot. But at one point, I got in some kind of trouble regarding a friend wherein I was taken to a doctor who recommended a therapist for the family, and went to see this therapist, and this was right at the very beginning. These were the first stages of the medical trials for all the new experimental drugs that are going around. This is before SSRIs and brain drugs. This was when they were practicing with amphetamines. And, they started working with Ritalin, basically, in the beginning. And so all the doctors were just dying to push it. They were pretty much trained to do just that. Nothing but push Ritalin. And so, of course, this therapist found some way to turn me getting beat up by a few kids in the neighborhood into some kind of a sexual thing, a sexual incursion, and thereby devised that I had been traumatized sexually and somehow had developed ADHD because of it, and that must be why I was not interested in school. It had nothing to do with the fact that the teachers were terrible at their jobs and that I wasn't learning a damn thing at all.
Right.
I mean, most of what they were telling me was common sense. I mean, to me, a lot of things are common sense to me that aren't to other people. That's why I don't come across well, and that's why most people think I'm a dickhead. But then again, I am a dickhead, so that's okay. Anyways, they put me on the Ritalin, and from there on, it was kind of spotty. Like here and there, I remember meeting a girl that I liked a lot. I remember a few different fights I got into that I kind of stopped fighting back at that point, and I just sort of, I remember one person actually hit me, and they got kind of scared when they realized that the full force of their hitting me could not really move me at all, let alone damage me. And so that was the end of the people picking on me at school there. I didn't even have to put up a fight. That was good. That was fortuitous because I wasn't really there. I had no social relationships. My memory was just, like I said, it would come in spots. I remember that girl a lot, though. I mean, she was very attractive. But, I had friends, and I had one friend in particular that I do remember well. Once I started coming off of the Ritalin and my memory started re-engaging, we smoked pot all the time. We hung out at a local church. How great for foreshadowing is that? We sat around smoking pot in the back of a church. But one friend in particular, he was born partially blind, and it was regressive, so he was losing his sight progressively throughout his life. And at one point, he was like the closest friend I had. I mean, I had a lot of people that, most especially Boob. Anybody who's involved with the initiative would know my brother Boob was one of the founding members. Robert, and he was always a very close friend. And it's a neat story that when I saw him the first day that I had seen him passing by the Taco Bell, we were sitting at Taco Bell. I pointed to that and I said to my other friends, I said, that dude's important somehow for no reason that I could come up with whatsoever. I told that dude's important somehow. And lo and behold, that became my adopted brother. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, because of the Ritalin, I didn't really have much of a childhood to speak of. So it actually now, in hindsight, it gave me the chance to raise myself because when I finally did, when my memory did come back, which was around the time that I lost that actual best friend I had, the friend who was blind, who was progressively blind. He moved away to the first girl that he ever got together with was over like a telephone hookup line back when we had telephone hookup lines. I think they still have them, but who uses those, right? They have internet. We got pictures there, but he met a girl over the telephone hookup line, and he went to live with her, and he shot himself. I don't believe that. I've never believed that. But the official story is he got so depressed that he shot himself.
Oh my goodness.
That's the official story his family hears. Me, I'm still looking for this girl. And I'm going to find you. If you're watching out there somewhere, I'm going to find you. Anyways, that was when my memory really hit hard, and it started coming back to me, and I became, a real living presence. And I feel like there are things I feel about that particular occurrence because I was getting into spirituality, and I was drawn to it just automatically. It was something that it was my interest,
So would you say that was a big, if not the biggest catalyst for you having the views and ideology that you do is that moment when you heard that happened?
You could say it was a catalyst in the sense that, he had called me and he had said something. He had asked me some personal questions regarding him. He had asked me some questions and he asked me because I guess I had become the resident priest amongst them in some ways. I had become very highly regarded in the spiritual field because I was well learned at it. I mean, I devoted my studies and to it, and I knew a lot. I moved a lot further in these things than most other people around us had, and so people would come to me with these issues a lot for help. And he asked me something along the lines of, do you think that after what I've done, God would accept me? If I were to die, would God accept me? And I told him, I don't think that God is going to reject anybody. I don't think God's a rejecting sort of character. In fact, I don't think you're understanding what God really is supposed to mean. You're part of it. No, it's not going to reject you. You are it. It is a friend to you. It always will be. It's always gonna be your best friend. And then the next day I heard that he had killed himself, and I always blamed myself for that because I thought that what I said had kind of, affirmed that he could go ahead and do that. But I honestly, I don't believe that he did that. I think there's something fishy about it somewhere or another. I think she shot him in the head. Yeah, but honestly, maybe I'm just being paranoid. Who knows? I do feel like my answer affirmed his death for him.
Right. Now, my next question is, what does your family think of your views and what you're trying to do for the world?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. My mother and my father, I would say, are proud of me, just in standard ways, and they're proud of the capacity that I have and such, but they don't think very highly of it because the initiative does have a general standard measure of not. We provide assistance to people who ask for it or require it at no charge. We do not make money for anything that we do, and it's a principal factor in play that we are never going to be making any money off of the things that we do. It's all volunteer work. So insofar as concerns common society, I'm a loser. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a great job. I lose my jobs all the time because I'm devoted to this. I don't really keep a steady work. I don't have a steady work capacity, so I'm constantly, running out of time. I'm running out of money, and generally speaking, I'm a loser insofar as society's concerned. But yes, at times when they're happy and when I do have money and I'm paying for them, then they're very happy with everything I'm doing and commend me on it highly, and they do in fact give me praise and think that it's a wonderful thing. I haven't seen my father since we started this initiative, the internet fact of the initiative. I don't know where he is. He was a real kind of a deadbeat person. What I do remember from my childhood was that he was very abusive. He was a very abusive drunk, and he was an alcoholic. Every night he was drunk, like plastered drunk, and he had lived a kind of a rough life in the sense that he was tough. He was a tough guy. He was a greaser. He was a fighter, and I got a lot of that from him, I suppose. But he was very abusive to my mother and I, and there was a point. This is important for that. This will become very important later. There was a point where I kind of woke out of the Ritalin stupor for just a moment, and I turned to my mother and I said to her, how long are you going to put up with this dude's shit? That's all I said. And I don't know what she thought particularly about that, but the next time she ran into him and he started bitching at her, he started yelling at her, starting a fight, which would ultimately end in him beating her, or me, or both. She jacked him in the face and damn near knocked him out and walked away. And that was, he came to the house a lot drunk and he threw rocks at the windows and shit, but he never really did anything really hardcore since then.
Right.
And there was a reason that happened. There's a reason that happened that actually hasn't occurred yet. So keep that in mind, people. I said that to her for a reason that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
It's about to.
And I also would like to add something to anybody watching. If you're a victim of domestic violence, please seek help. Seek help.
Yes.
They say this all the time in commercials. They say this all the time, but it's still important to say. It doesn't matter if you are a victim or if you know someone who's a victim. Report it. Get them help, or if you're a victim yourself, get help. It's not worth staying in this situation. Know that person does not love you. Yes, the community can help you, but you're gonna have to be brave enough to stand up and use your voice. You can do it. So yeah, I just want to throw that in there for anybody who's experiencing stuff like that.
Yeah, on the secondary note for that, if you're having trouble reporting or reaching out, if you're afraid of consequences that may occur, if there are values that come into play that are preventing you from doing what you think you may need to do in that case, or you need help, you can contact the initiative. We have an entire campaign devoted to this. Even if you just want counsel on it, you want to talk to somebody who's been through it, we have people for that. You can contact me personally anytime. If you're unsure about reporting someone, or you're afraid of the repercussions,
right.
Or even if I'll go ahead on a limb and say, if you don't want to report them, but you just want it taken care of, you can contact me, and we'll do something. So the initiative is here for that too. We have a whole campaign for that, an anti-domestic abuse campaign, and Nicole's heading that up. So cheers, Nicole.
Yes.
I've been really hurt lately. I've been really hurt and beat up and had a really rough time of it, and so I'm gonna take a short leave of absence on my smoking ban and smoke. So screw you if you don't like it. Sorry.
So my next question is this. You actually just brought up about the initiative, and now is a really good point to bring this up. Now, could you tell everyone about, if you could define the initiative, what would the definition of the initiative be?
There's a girl, a woman, I'm not sure that I can remember her name at the moment. I'll give it to you if I do, but there's a woman who did a lot of hypnotherapy sessions where she regressed people into past lives and such. And God, I wish I could remember her name. She called us. She called it that we were coming years in advance, like years and years in advance. This is a big plan that's been happening for a long time. It's come that we're the second wave of it right now. There's been one wave. They're going to be about late 40s to 60s or even older at this point, and they don't know who they are. Trust me, these people will know who they are. They were the first wave of the initiative. We are the second wave right now that's hitting, and there will be a third wave that's coming up now. They're having a lot of trouble due to social programming and due to a lot of the things that happened in the early 90s, especially with the social programming and the experimental drug use. But the initiative is just good people who want is not strong enough a word. We are going to change this planet. There's something happening right now that is, we're going through an alteration that this planet has been struggling with for eons. That we keep getting to this point, and we're not ready for it. We fuck it up, and the catastrophes occur. The human race gets nearly wiped out, and we have to start over again. It's happened over and over, the same cycle, and we're not letting it happen this time. Primarily because I don't think we don't really have the resources available anymore now on Earth to start over again if we needed to. So we can't fail this time. We're going to make it to the next stage. We've already passed up. We've already made it through the very worst part of it. So we're doing pretty good, and things are looking very good for the future. It's going to be tough, but ultimately the initiative is just good people who are here on a mission. We all volunteered to come here and to work together and to make this happen. Now our faction of the Status Initiative, as we call ourselves, there are many names that people use that are part of the overall network. You know, they all have different names like Light Workers and Star Seeds and all that. Which, by the way, you don't need to be an alien to work with us. Okay, you can just be yourself. Any one of you, you can be a witch. You can be an alien if you want to, but you don't have to. You can just be an operative of this network that's growing, and we're trying to put our purpose, that as a director of this faction of the initiative, our purpose is to network everyone, to get everyone together, and to, essentially remind everybody that, hey, we came here for a reason, because most people, I'm sorry, I gotta get the coffee again. Because most people seem to have lost their way and are under the impression that they're here for some other reason than, essentially ensuring our survival. They think that making money might be more important, or a lot of them get into this idea where they think that the significant other, the romance factor, is the most important part. And I still kind of have a knack for that myself. I'm a romantic, diehard romantic, but no, you're here to do this work, and you're here to do it fast and hard. And I'm sorry to say to most of the people that might be watching, is you're not playing hard enough. You guys, we need to move faster. I mean, I said we're doing well. I wasn't lying, but that doesn't ensure us a win here.
And why did you start the initiative? Why did you start it?
9/11.
Because 9/11 was the reason? Can you elaborate on that?
When I first started waking up, and especially when, my friend had died, and I sought purpose, I sought reason for being, and I needed a path to be on. And this book started going around called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, and it spoke of synchronicities, which I've spoken of synchronicity so much, anybody watching this channel knows what it is. But this book essentially gave out, I think it was a 12-step schematic for how to operate synchronicity, how to learn to follow it, to read it, to live by it. And it's very simple, very easy schematic. Not only is it easy to get, but it actually will present itself. The book is interactive in your life. The synchronicities will occur while you're reading the book. Each chapter, when it presents a new step in the process, that step will present it in your life. It was written perfectly. It's a beautiful tool. So that woke me up. That made me feel like, holy shit, I'm on something here, because it was really wacky.
So that was like your wake-up call.
That was what?
So my wake-up call, essentially.
Sort of. We'll get to the wake-up call just here. I started following these synchronicities, and I wound up falling into a certain crowd of people that hung out at what was then the Phoenix coffee shop. We rebuilt it, and when I say we, I mean myself and a girl named Jill built that whole place, so you're welcome. But we didn't get paid for that, by the way. The Root Cafe, it's called now. I have no idea why they named it that. The Phoenix was awesome. But everybody hung out at the Phoenix coffee shop. And now, a little bit of foreshadowing. I had been dating this girl, a really strange girl who I don't think she had ever really dated anyone before, and really neither had I, so I didn't know how it was supposed to work. So for me, I thought, I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, is this really how it's supposed to be? Because this girl was really awkward and strange. And I didn't understand that she just actually had kind of social problems, I guess. And she would always tell me about this friend of hers that had wronged her somehow, and she hated her now. And this friend of hers, she lived with a coven of witches, and they practiced voodoo, and they were like terrible people who did like animal sacrifices and all this crazy shit about this crazy girl that was so weird and who was raised by a coven of witches. Now, coming later on, after obviously I left that girl in a classroom alone somewhere and never talked to her again. But I wound up winding up with this crowd. Boo was practicing with me with the same Celestine prophecy with the synchronicities, but his path took him in a different direction, where he met what would eventually become the Garden program, which was essentially the start of our faction of the initiative. But we'll get to that in a second. Anyways. I meet this girl named Tatiana, she's working for us in China right now. She runs her own initiative, and I think she's still in China, but she's running her own initiative. She's a director over there, and Tatiana, Tot Monster, she said, I want to introduce you to somebody. And this day I was thinking, something's going to happen today. I have an intuition something big's going to happen today. And Tati, she says, there's somebody I really want to introduce you to for some reason. It might be something big for you. And I'm like, well, there it is, right? So we go to the coffee shop and we sit down, and I hear somebody yell, hey, what do you guys want? And Tati says, give us 2 black coffees. And I just agreed with her. I was like, I don't want to, I'm not even paying for it, so who cares, right? I'll take coffee. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm on a chapter in the book that it's talking about your health and your diet. And I'm like, maybe I should get like a green tea that would, really, at least it would seem kind of like pretentiously healthy. And, which I don't know about green tea. I never really drank it, but.
Well, it is supposed to be better for you, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a coffee addict now, so. So screw you, green tea. Anyways, I'm thinking in the back of my head, I should probably get a green tea. Maybe it's better for me. Maybe it'll boost my energy somehow, because I'd been starting to become aware of this energy that we have working for us. And this girl with just the coolest looking, like she had this really like hippie kind of like dress with the frazzles and the colors on it, and she had hair that had like little bobblies and twine, and not twine, but like braids and bobblies and little crystals, and just bright green hair that was all wavy, and it had all these cool things hanging in it. She walks up and she gives me the most beautiful knowing smile, looks me directly in the eyes, and she hands me a fucking green tea. And now it took me years to figure out how she did that. But that very night, I talked to her a little bit about the book, and she said, yeah, I've read that before, that's a good book. But she explained to me, and I didn't really get it at first, but eventually I figured it out that she had told me the story of her background and her traditions, which essentially is all of the elder traditions of humanity. You know, Hinduism, Taoism, the older traditions before religion, and most especially Taoism and the way of, you know, the I Ching, the way of life, the way of changes, the way of synchronicity, pretty much,
Right.
and having a living communal relationship with nature and with life itself, being engaged with life, you know, understanding the world as a living being that's communicating with you. Basically, that tradition in and of itself, that was her, as she described it, our sacred heritage. And turns out that she was the odd witch who had not grown up raised by a coven of witches, but had been raised by two lesbian domestic partners who had followed these traditions their entire life, that was passed on from their predecessors, and so on and so forth down the line. They were all a part of this tradition, and Ariel decided to train me and pass it on to me. And so basically, she and I would just talk about whatever intuitions we had. For the most part, it was really, she would already know what was going to happen throughout the course of every day. But we would really kind of wind up wandering around from city to city for weeks at a time, just staying at places. Like, I mean, you'd be surprised when you're working with this sort of thing, when you're working with this energy and this synchronicity, there's always going to be a place for you to stay. It's going to be ready, waiting for you. They will offer it to you. You don't even have to ask for it. It'll be there. And she and I would wander around, and she would basically kind of bitch at me every time I fucked up, tell me to eat a carrot instead of smoke a cigarette, that sort of thing, and just kind of keep me in line and show me what was going on. Oh, what she did a lot, I loved so a lot of the synchronicity she pulled off is she would push me into dangerous circumstances and cause for me to have to diffuse them, you know, non-violently, I suppose you could say, which, I mean, every now and then there was violent occurrence, but for the most part, usually just me being there somehow would kind of put a value in play that, and this sort of activity is what eventually led to my theory and doctrine on values and aspects and all that and how that works. And basically I'm a scientific minded person. I want to figure out how this works. I want to know how this synchronicity works, precisely what factors are in play and how we can make use of it best, because I want to be like her. This girl knew every step of the way what was going to happen. She could cause things to happen on the spot that you wouldn't believe. Like, this is the kind of person that could conjure up a storm if you pissed her off just to scare you. And I'm not fucking exaggerating here. This was a very, very powerful person, and I'm just now beginning to get to the level that I think she might have been at. I'm starting to learn some of the tricks she had with spot casting and being able to orchestrate synchronicities, but for the most part, it really seemed as though she had kind of plotted every passing day weeks in advance. But yeah, she would push me in the middle of situations, and I would have to diffuse them, and what would ultimately wind up happening is my presence would cause for the person who was being hostile in the situation to not only calm down and be diffused, but to learn some kind of valuable life lesson out of it that I didn't even know I was teaching them. Like, I remember one time this dude was going to hit me, and he was in the middle of a fight, and I stood between him and the other person and said, I'm not going to let you hit this guy. And he said, oh, I'll hit you in the face. And he knew what we were doing. He knew about the book and everything and the energies in play. And he says to me, what are you going to do? You're going to stop my fist with your energy? And this girl, Julia, next to me, she laughs at him because he's standing there with his fist cocked back. And this is like the third time now he's told me he can just hit me in the face if he wants to, but he's not doing it. And then he asks me, what, are you just going to stop me from punching you with putting out your energy? And the girl, Julia, next to him, she laughs in his face. She says, you don't see that's what he's doing right now? And lo and behold, he never did hit me. He never was going to. And he learned that lesson. He even, later on, I ran into that same kid, and he had read the book, and he was on the same path. It was funny shit. That's what led to I'm sorry, you have a question?
No, that's what I was gonna say. It's funny how sometimes things that happen in your life can get you onto the path that you're supposed to be on. Like the initiative is your path, and that's the reason why you are so passionate about it, and that's the reason why you care so much about it, is because you know that is what you're supposed to be doing.
Sort of. The initiative is just, it's what we're calling it. It's what we're calling the initiative as we know it, our effort to network people and to try and teach them everything that we've learned as quickly as possible. That's my, what do you call my pilgrimage? You wanted to ask about spotters, what a spotter is. We didn't have that term when I was being trained by her name was Ariel, by the way. You trained me.
Well, I wanted to ask several things about spotters, which is, and I'll kind of I'll lump it up together because since it's about the same thing. I wanted to know what a spotter is and how you met your spotter, and also if you could elaborate a bit on your spotter's training methods and how you train.
Okay, well, we just did all that. That was how I met her. That was pretty much how she trained me, sort of by reprimanding me. And most of the time I didn't know why she was doing it even, but eventually I learned, like, because she knew in advance that would happen. I mean, she was very elegant. She moved very fast. And when I speak to moving fast, I mean being ahead. Like, most people are actually living at the very least a few microseconds in the past. But this girl, she was ready and waiting and had already plotted out what was going to happen weeks into the future. So that's the sort of thing I mean when I tell people to move faster. If you have a motivation to do something, you need to be able to get from motivation to taking action immediately.
Exactly. And that leads to something I want to tell people. You know, if you're not willing to put the work into something that you're passionate about, if you're not willing to work hard at it, you're never going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So, be willing to put the work in for it, and not only that, but also put your heart and soul into it. That's really important to do. As you can tell, Donovan really, really cares about everything that he's working on, and this means a great deal to him. So, if you find something that means a great deal to you as well, then I encourage everyone, and I'm sure Donovan does too, encourage everyone to, follow their dreams and follow their paths and wherever they feel that they're being led to.
Yeah, and I'd like to say on that note, two notes there, two things. One, obviously, put your heart and soul into everything. Be passionate about things. Be kind, man. It's as simple. It's like even religion tells you this. The golden fucking rule. Just be kind. That means be respectful, and being respectful means having honor. Having honor means being honest, genuine. I think a lot of people just don't have the first clue as to what any of these words really mean. Being respectful means being honest and genuine. Now, also, I'd like to say on a secondary side note to the people that actually did drop out. Maybe. One of them certainly dropped out. The other one maybe not. Well, actually, there's three now. One of them definitely dropped out. Two are maybes. But, don't do that. I mean, if you're going to make an arrangement to do something, follow through. I mean, my God, talk about moving quickly. You can't get from motivation to action. Now you're taking a step backwards. You're actually moving in reverse. You're making an arrangement to get something done and then refusing to, and it's likely out of fear. And what that does is it speaks to the world, and the world speaks in implications. It doesn't hear, I want this, and so say, okay, I'm going to give it to you. No. When you tell the world that you want something, what the world hears is, this person doesn't have that. And that's what happened.
Right.
It's that fast. It's happening that fast. It doesn't stop to think about what you might mean. It hears what you imply, and it is happening already.
Right.
Even as you do the asking, I shall have already answered.
Now, I wanna go back just a little bit to some things about the initiative, and one of the things that I'm curious about is I know that the initiative is involved in certain organizations, such as you feed people in Africa and you help battered women, and there's numerous other things that you do as well. If anyone wants to know more, check some of his videos out. He really goes in detail about that, but there's far too many to really list everything, so I just grabbed a couple to speak of. And I think that it's great that you guys do stuff like that. First off, and I applaud you for that, because, you know, all across the world, people are starving, and abuse certainly is an issue. So thank you for that, for getting involved in that. But I want to know what made you decide to pick the organizations that you chose, and not only what made you, but is there a reason for you wanting to get involved with these specific organizations?
Well, there's going to be a twofold answer.